but I do view him as somebody who could position himself to be that QB2. And if he's not in that position, but he's playing well, we know that the reason that would be the case is because they don't want people clamoring for Shedeur Sanders prematurely.
Yeah, I agree. It's a stair-step process. The first step that he took was in the preseason game as far as bunching his name in the bunch with the guys that are playing.
Because my attitude is a Kenny Pickett, a Dylan Gabriel, a Tyler Huntley, that should not be enough to derail Shedeur Sanders. To me, you're legitimately competing for the QB2.
Stephen A. Smith didn't pull any punches, taking direct aim at coach Kevin Stefanski for what he called a fake controversy. According to Stephen A., Stefanski purposely pushed the story that Shedeur Sanders is injured just to make it look like the young quarterback isn't really the team's QB2. He accused Stefanski of deliberately holding Shedeur back, saying this sudden oblique injury claim is nothing but a cover-up. Stephen A. went even further, hinting that the whole situation might actually be coming from higher up, with team ownership pulling the strings and Stefanski just doing what he's told.
Amount of work that we've seen. And that comes with going up against competition. Of course, second and third units and all of that stuff come into play. When you're the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, had he shown up this weekend and balled out again, playing 45 or more snaps like he did in the first game and putting up similar, if not better numbers, I think that would have boded very, very well.
Stephen has stressed that it was obvious. If Shedeur Sanders had matched his last strong performance, Kevin Stefanski and the team's ownership would have had no choice but to put him on the field. According to Stephen A., Shedeur's talent and momentum were undeniable, and his move to QB2 was bound to happen. But he argued this sudden injury wasn't random. It was a perfectly timed roadblock set up to stall Shedeur's rise. In his view, ownership pulled the strings while Stefanski simply carried out their plan. And Stephen A. may have a point, because at this stage it's no longer just about Shedeur's supposed injury, it's about the bigger picture and the timing of it. Just days after the game, Kevin Stefanski met with the media and brushed off the idea that Shedeur was seriously pushing for the starting job. He claimed his focus was on developing all quarterbacks on the roster equally. On the surface, that sounded reasonable, until the official depth chart dropped. That's when everything changed, sparking questions about the true motives behind the decision.
We know how the game goes. But then he starts talking about the offense, right? 0 giveaways. Okay, this is when you're supposed to insert Shedeur, some fans think. Let's talk.
Hey, special teams, Spooky, takeaway.
Even after Shedeur Sanders put up what many are calling the best quarterback performance of the entire preseason, Kevin Stefanski still dropped him to the 4th spot on the depth chart. And here's where it gets even more bizarre. Both Jaren Hall and Kenny Pickett were dealing with injuries at the time, yet Sanders was somehow placed behind them. That move not only shocked fans but also made 0 sense, fueling even more suspicion about what's really happening behind closed doors in Cleveland. Reacting to the depth chart, Shedeur didn't hold back on blasting the Browns, pointing out that being a 5th-round pick shouldn't automatically decide his spot, especially after the way he performed in preseason. Stephen A. backed him up, saying ranking Shedeur 4th had nothing to do with reality. In his eyes, the decision wasn't about talent or on-field play at all. It was predetermined, with the organization sticking him there simply because that's where they wanted him from the very beginning.
What your position is on the depth chart at the start of the season, as opposed to the start of training camp and ultimately preseason. Because what happens is that they had him in that position before he competed, before he had a chance to prove himself. It's not like they walked in there and they said, okay, y'all competed, and as a result of what we've seen, we've got you as the QB4. No, you came in there and that's where they placed you.
Just when it looked like things couldn't get any uglier, new reports surfaced claiming Kevin Stefanski has no plans to play Shedeur Sanders in the second preseason game. That bombshell only cranked the controversy higher. Despite his breakout performance, it's becoming obvious Sanders isn't part of the Browns' immediate plans, or at least not in the role fans and analysts expected. This raises the big question. Is this a calculated strategy or something personal driving Stefanski's decisions? And then, out of nowhere, he's suddenly injured. It's hard not to think there's more going on behind the scenes. Right when the calls for Shedeur to take the field were hitting a peak, the Browns seemed to look for ways to kill that momentum. With no other excuse fitting the narrative, they slapped on arm soreness, claiming it would clear up the very next day. That explanation only fueled more doubt. Is this a real injury, or just a convenient excuse to sideline him while pressure mounts? Even Stefanski admitted Sanders' recovery could take longer than expected, stressing caution because it affects a key muscle group. But the way he phrased it, the hesitation in his tone, only made things sketchier. Every word felt rehearsed, like he was carefully dodging the truth. His refusal to lay everything out clearly has left people convinced we're not getting the full story, and that there's more here than Stefanski is willing to admit.
If it's a right guard, you can play for that. When it's a quarterback, you kind of need that muscle to throw. So unfortunately, going to put him down for a little bit here. We'll treat it day to day and see how he responds, but want to be smart because he's a thrower, so you can't.
Stephen A.
Can't push it.
Argued that the Browns' moves are nothing but a calculated effort to silence the growing wave of support for Shedeur Sanders. He believes the team saw the buzz and excitement that exploded around Sanders after his first game, and it made them nervous. Instead of letting that momentum grow, Stephen A. claimed they're intentionally trying to slow it down, keeping him off the field so his name doesn't dominate the headlines. In his view, this has nothing to do with injuries or depth charts. It's all about controlling the story and making sure Sanders doesn't turn into a force the team can't afford to ignore.
But I do view him as somebody who could position himself to be that QB2. And if he's not in that position, but he's playing well, we know that the reason that would be the case is because they don't want people clamoring for Shedeur Sanders prematurely.
The drama around Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns has grown way past a simple depth chart discussion or an injury report. It's turned into a full-blown controversy filled with speculation, suspicion, and frustration. From Stephen A. Smith's explosive attacks on coach Kevin Stefanski to the strangely timed arm soreness announcement, every new twist seems to raise more doubts than clarity. Sanders' preseason performance was more than good enough to argue for a bigger role. Yet the Browns' choices, dropping him to fourth despite other quarterbacks being hurt and now reportedly sitting him out of the second preseason game, send the opposite message. Stephen A. has made it clear, this isn't about Sanders' talent, it's a calculated move to block his momentum. The timing of the injury, the careful wording in press conferences, and the refusal to give straight answers all point to a controlled narrative. Fans saw Sanders shine in his debut and instantly rallied behind him, and according to Stephen A., that's exactly what the Browns are desperate to stop. Instead of riding the wave of excitement, the Browns seem to be slamming the brakes. Maybe to protect plans they already had in place or to avoid a power struggle over roster decisions. Their so-called caution and the vague, sketchy updates on Sanders' condition have only fueled speculation. Is this a strategic smokescreen or just flat-out bad management? If it's strategy, it's reckless, because pushing away both the fan base and the player could backfire for years. If it's personal, the organization is putting its own credibility on the line. Either way, one thing's clear, this story isn't fading anytime soon. Until the Browns stop playing games and let Shedeur Sanders truly compete on merit, the whispers about hidden agendas will only get louder. So what's really happening here? Is this honestly about protecting Shedeur's health? Or is the injury just a convenient excuse to keep him benched? Is Kevin Stefanski simply taking orders from the front office? Or is he personally invested in blocking Sanders' rise up the depth chart? Could this be some kind of big picture strategy? Or are we just watching politics and personal agendas trump actual performance? And most importantly, if Sanders keeps getting sidelined after proving himself, how long before fans explode and refuse to stay silent? At this point, it's impossible to ignore that something bigger is happening in Cleveland. This is no longer just about Shedeur Sanders' health, a depth chart, or even one coach's decision. It's about power, politics, and control inside the Browns organization. The timing of the injury, the carefully worded press conferences, and the refusal to give straight answers all point to a deeper agenda at play. Fans see it, analysts see it, and the pressure isn't going away. The real question is how long the Browns can keep the truth buried before it all blows up in public. One thing is certain, this story is only heating up, and the fallout could shape not just Sanders' career, but the team's future for years to come. Subscribe to our channel for the latest updates, exclusive insights, and full coverage of the story as it unfolds.